right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining in with us here today for ICEsoft Enterprise Mobility Solutions webinar. I think we have everybody here, and we'll get started. So by way of introduction, my name is Brian McKinney. I'm President and CEO of ICEsoft Technologies, and I'll be the principal presenter here today for this webinar. I'll be joined by Breau. He's one of our senior developers, and he'll be assisting with the demos and some of the technical discussions that we have for you today. As a couple of housekeeping items, everybody's phones are muted. If you do have questions, simply open up your GoToWebinar control panel that you should see on your screen, and there should be a questions tab there. You can enter them in at any time there as they come to mind. We'll address all of the questions at the end of the webinar. The second point is we do have a couple of polling questions, 3 of them I believe. For today they'll be kind of segued into at different points during the presentation. You will be shown the results, and if you can participate, it would be greatly appreciated. It certainly helps us refine the presentation a little bit and make sure that we're getting everybody's questions answered here. So a little bit about ICEsoft. Most of you probably are familiar with us. We were founded in 2001, and we are a commercial open source company with over 150,000 developer community and about 25,000 companies accessing and using our technology. We focus on enterprise and resolving enterprise challenges. And specifically, we look at web-centric products with a focus on kind of presentation layer technologies, push, and notification for both desktop and mobile environments. We have 400 commercial customers, mainly in the medium to large-scale enterprise space. And we have a wide variety of users in our user base. And the takeaway from this slide is really that we don't focus on any particular vertical. We look primarily at infrastructure software, and we work across the spectrum of different solutions that are out there. So I pulled this slide from some of my business presentations that I do, and I apologize, it is a little busy, but there's a couple of simple takeaways that I kind of want to draw people's attention to here. And the first is that we do a lot of work with Gartner and Forrester in taking a look at the industry, participating in different industry surveys, and working forward in that regard with them. And one of the interesting data points that's come up is that for an enterprise to develop, an external-facing application, one that's typically generating revenue or initiated by a business unit, you're looking at about $300,000 to $400,000 per application to develop and support that application. For an internal-facing application, something that's maybe driven by an IT organization that's more of a B2 employee kind of application, it's a little bit less. You're looking at about $100,000 per application to develop and support it. And the interesting point here is that Gartner and Forrester are both forecasting that there's going to be about 20 different internal-facing applications for every external one. So, kind of a rich terrain there in terms of people that are going to be migrating their applications. And the second takeaway is really on security. And it has to do with, the number of Fortune 500 companies that are exploring and developing custom applications just to enhance security in the mobile space. So it's obviously a top-of-mind concern. Now, as we participate with these different surveys, one of the pieces of insight we've been given is some of the top enterprise mobility challenges. And this is coming from people like yourselves that have participated in these different surveys. And the first one that's on top of everybody's mind is managing costs. And if you're a large-scale enterprise, you potentially have hundreds of different business-related applications that are eventually going to go mobile. And you're having to deal with that challenge of proliferation of all of these applications across the different mobile devices. And the challenge of how do you maximize reuse of your existing assets and infrastructure. The second hot-button item in terms of challenges is managing platform complexity. And I'm sure most of you have heard the term BYOD, or bring your own device, and the trend for employees to bring and access their own mobile devices to access their business-related applications. And not only is there a management challenge there, but you also have to go to the trouble of ensuring that all of these different devices interact seamlessly and behave the same way as they work with these different applications. So think back to the challenges on the desktop when you had to get IE6 and maybe Firefox behaving and acting in the same way with your web applications. The third point is one we alluded to before, which is managing security. And the old adage was, if you lose the phone, you lose the data, is an accurate one. You know, with a lot of native applications, business logic, client data, business data are all resident on the phone. And so it's a big challenge on how to manage security of these applications in the business environment. And the last of the top four issues is really how to tap into new features. You know, enterprises, like anybody else, would like to leverage the newest and greatest features that are out there. And typically that can be a challenge because sometimes these new features and capabilities come at a cost of having to implement new technologies or new platforms or develop new skills internally. So when ICEsoft goes away and we develop our mobile products that fit into our portfolio, you know, we take these things into consideration. And you know, what we're all about is we're really about resolving enterprise mobility challenges through a web-centric solution. So one of the themes of the presentation that you'll hear today is really that everything we do looks at it from a more web-centric kind of direction. So as we evaluate what products to develop and characteristics of it, we look at ways to reduce enterprise development maintenance costs. How do we reduce your BYOD support costs? And in sequence, how do we shorten application development times? The other thing we consider is reuse, and specifically, how do we allow our users to leverage their existing skill sets and training investments? And beyond that, how do we allow them to reuse and leverage their existing infrastructure and middleware investments? So we fundamentally believe that you know, if you have mobile application aspirations, you shouldn't have to go out and develop and rehire and retain a new development team specifically for that purpose. Your existing Java-based developers should be able to get that job done, and we're here to kind of help you realize that. In terms of the idea of security, we lean on the adage from the medical industry, you know, first do no harm. And our objective here is to allow you to utilize and leverage your existing security models, whether it's Java EE or .NET or what have you. And by way of going into mobile, you shouldn't be exposing your company to any greater risk. So you know, our focus is on allowing and developing solutions that allow you to leverage those pre-existing security models that you've been using for the last 5 years. And finally, we look at ways on how to extend new functionality to web-based developers that they don't typically have access to today. So things like native feature access, messaging and notification, adaptive layout technologies perhaps that they have to look at developing themselves. And so, you know, the question is why is this really relevant? Where are we going with this? Well, you know, for a long time, if you wanted to leverage the advantages and the efficiencies of a web-based design approach, you had to sacrifice, you know, things on the native side. You couldn't access things like camera and microphone or some of the richness associated with a native feature. And conversely, if you were developing a native application, you had to sacrifice some of the cost advantages maybe of a more centralized web-based application. And so, you know, what it means is that when ICEsoft was able to solve the puzzle of how to deliver native features to web-based applications, we kind of changed that design paradigm. And it's like a domino effect. And so by being able to achieve a functional equivalency on a web-based approach, we're able to develop considerably more benefits and cost advantages to our users. And so what do I mean by this? Well, as an example, consider a native application development. If you were looking to develop a native app across, say, 4 different platforms, iOS, Android, Windows, and BlackBerry, you're kind of looking at specific coding skills and some UI skills and different IDEs and different APIs. So you're, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 16 different development skills. And then once that application is developed, you have to worry about deployment onto the different app stores. And so, you know, getting it through the process of the Apple App Store submission process and getting it out into production. And then once that's done, you're still not completely there yet because you have post-production challenges. So basically in that kind of an environment, you have thousands of different client deployments to secure, manage, and worry about supporting and receiving upgrades, to the point where you're probably reliant on mobile application management software or mobile device management software. And so by able to deliver this functional equivalency between a web-based approach and a native approach, we're able to kind of resolve some of these issues. So rather than 12 to 16 development skills, we're in a situation where an enterprise probably only needs 4 development skills, most of which you probably already have in-house with your existing staff. And rather than deploy onto 4 different app stores, we're now in a situation where we're talking about deploying onto a single app server. And instead of managing thousands of remote clients and deployments, you're now worried about one application instance on that app server that you have to manage, support, and maintain. So a considerable shift in the value proposition between the 2 different methodologies without any sacrifice to the richness or the functionality that you can achieve. So jumping into the ICEsoft mobility portfolio, we're going to start talking today about ICEfaces. And it's a product most of you know and are probably familiar with. But over the last 9 to 12 months, we've done considerable work on extending ICEfaces into the mobile space, specifically into the tablet space, and we'll give you some insights there. We're going to talk about ICEmobile, which is really it's a Java EE-centric product, and it's really the most effective way to mobilize your Java EE or ICEfaces applications. It kind of reaches into that tablet and smartphone kind of sector. The other product we're going to discuss today is called BridgeIt. It's our latest product, and it enables us to deliver web-based applications with web-native features. So, for the first time now, if you're a web-based app developer, there's a mechanism for you to tap into some of these native features that you couldn't previously do so. And then we're going to wrap up with a little bit of a look behind the curtain into products that are on our roadmap and stuff that you can expect to see from us over the upcoming months. And the one we're going to talk about today is our notification service that we have planned to come out here in the next couple of months. And this is a cloud-based intelligent notification service that really extends the concept of push into that mobile messaging and notification space. And it yields some very exciting and interesting results that I think you'll be very excited about. So when we look at the product landscape, we have a very kind of comprehensive architecture slide here. And the takeaway here is that we're looking to span our products from the desktop enterprise all the way out through enterprise mobility to consumer mobility. And then the vertical axis, we're looking at extending from providing solutions that reach down into the native space all the way up through the web and into the cloud, and covering a hybrid solution in between. And so, where does ICEfaces fit in? It has its own framework, its own support of legacy infrastructure and technology, its own library, and it's really geared towards that desktop and tablet kind of environment. We bundle that with the ICEmobile product, which kind of moves us up that mobility stream a notch further into the smartphones, into that enterprise mobility and consumer mobility with its own framework and its own component libraries. BridgeIt is really our hybrid product, which reaches down from those native component layers and delivers that functionality up to a web-based designer and developer approach. And then we top it all off with a notification service that integrates all 3 of those different product offerings and provides contextualized notification to the end user. So I think we're ready for our first polling question. Rob, you there?
Hi. Yes, I am, Brian. Thank you. For the first polling question, we would like to ask, which benefits of mobile development are you most interested in? Which benefits of mobile development are you most interested in? Votes are coming in now. We'll leave it open just a few more seconds here. and then we'll share the results with you quickly. And turn it over to Brian.
Great. Thank you, Rob. So let's dig down into each of these products and how they relate to the mobile solution, individually. So the first product we're going to talk about is ICEfaces, and it's one you're probably most closely familiar with. I won't spend a lot of time on this chart. It's standards compliant. We have a very rich component library, the star of which is probably our data table technology. We have a wide range of support, both for legacy infrastructure products and other third-party technologies. But what have we done in terms of the mobile front? So, as I mentioned before, for the last 9 to 12 months, we've been delivering different kinds of mobility extensions to the product. And first and foremost, we've touch-enabled all of our component library now, and we've added gesture support. So that means now on a tablet, you can do things like resizing and moving dialogues. You can resize complex data tables and move columns around. Everything you can do with the mouse, basically, you can now do on tablets with our existing data table library. Sliders are all present now, and general drag and drop support using touch enablement and gestures. The other thing we did was we added a new theme roller and device detection and auto theming capability, and we'll showcase this to you here in 3 or 4 minutes. But basically, we have the ability now to detect the nature of the appliance you're viewing the application from, and take some adaptive and responsive design considerations, and either re-theme it so that it looks the way it's supposed to look from a theming perspective, and or adapt the measure of the content that's available for you to see. We have an emulator that we're going to show you here shortly that allows you to simulate what your web application is going to look like in a mobile device experience, and I think that's very powerful. We've also added support for all of the different mobile browsers, and we've added something called adaptive connection management. And this was a big deal because as you start to move into the mobility space, you're moving into an environment where the quality of the connection is less predictive than it might have been in a wireline context. And why that's relevant is that if you are kind of a client server-based architecture, the quality of that handshake and the timing associated with it is pretty important. And we didn't want our customers to be in a situation where, say, they were in a warehouse application with intermittent connectivity, and all of a sudden they kept logging in and dropping off of the application in terms of lost connectivity. So what we do with adaptive connection management is we dynamically assess the quality of that connection, and we change those handshake requirements and adapt them in such a way that you're on in a much more robust fashion. So if you were to drop off intermittently, you would still be okay. And again, this is really the path of least resistance to delivering, mobility to applications and on a tablet environment. So ICEmobile, the second product in the stack. ICEmobile is really about mobility for Java EE, and it's the easiest way to mobilize a Java EE or an ICEfaces application. It bolts on to your application, whether it's Java EE based or ICEfaces on JSF, but it does so at the presentation layer. And why this is important is that we don't touch the back end of your application stack, and nor do we require it. By being at the presentation layer, it allows you to reuse all of that infrastructure you've made that investment in. So you don't have to go in and redo the wiring or reconnect things like you might with other solutions. It's open source, Apache license, and we do offer a commercial support add-on license if you want that kind of support. It is very web-centric, and we leverage HTML5 and JavaScript in all of our components and the libraries. The other thing with ICEmobile is you get to leverage and build upon all of the values and the enterprise-grade deployment capabilities of ICEfaces. So whether that's clustering or failover support or any of those more intricate enterprise deployment kind of qualities that you need, you can leverage all of that existing capability that is present in ICEfaces. We have a component suite that we'll talk about that has, again, auto theming and auto device detection. And we have the same suite of emulators. And we've added and extended our cloud push, our real-time push capabilities. And I'll show you that here in the next slide. And of course, this is all fully cross-platform supported. So, whether it's on BlackBerry or on Apple iPhones or Android phones, what have you, we work across the different platforms here. So in terms of our mobile components, we have over 50 new components that we've added to our mobile library. And again, these are HTML5 and CSS3 centric. They do the device detection and auto theming. And they also now do adaptive page layout and navigation. So this is something that you've probably heard about, adaptive and responsive design, and you're probably familiar with it. We've incorporated that capability into our components as required. And so now, as a result, as a developer, you don't really have to worry about that quite so much. We do a lot of that for you there. We have the ability to do device-specific skins. So if you wanted to, your single application would look like a BlackBerry app on a BlackBerry device and an Apple App Store app on an iPhone. And again, you don't have to worry about that. We do all of that detection and skinning. If you're like some of our other customers and you want your own proprietary skin, this is also the mechanism by which you can reskin and do everything that way as well. And then we offer native component integration via BridgeIt. So cloud push, I alluded to this earlier. I think you're probably all familiar with conventional AJAX push and our ICE push technology in terms of pushing content asynchronously from an application out to that mobile, out to that client device. And the challenge we had was as we approached the mobile space, we knew we had to do a little bit more. And a lot of times these mobile appliances, they go to sleep, or people, put them to sleep in order to conserve battery power and juice there. So the challenge is how do we deliver a consistent user experience and still retain the value of push in that environment where people are maybe no longer active in the application. And we did that with Cloud Push. So think of this as the next generation of AJAX push. And what we did was we developed a bunch of notification plugins that interact between your application and ICEmobile now, and the cloud-based notification services from people like Apple with APNS, or Android with GCM, or BlackBerry with BPS. So now, if your application is no longer engaged or not active, if your mobile device is no longer engaged with the application or active with the application, if there's an application state and it can't push the content straight out to that appliance, it goes up through the notification plugins and then out through the network through a cloud push technique, and it delivers the notification to the different devices through a push notification, which then reconnects and updates the application with the pushed content. So whether you're active or inactive with the application, it no longer matters. We can still get the push updates out to those clients. And now I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the ICEmobile Simulator, and I'm going to turn this over to Philip to take you through the demonstration. So just one second while I find Philip here. Okay, Philip, you should be ready to go.
Okay, yeah, I think so. Hi, everybody. So Brian was mentioning that the ICEmobile demo showcases all of the mobile components in the library. But if you're on a desktop, you might not be getting the true mobile experience. So to help with this, we created the ICEmobile Simulator. So this is available for your ICEmobile development for free. And the simulator, I think, really helps in seeing what your ICEmobile application will look like on different mobile platforms. So here it is. Here's the showcase on an iPhone. But let's say I want to see what it looks like on an Android device. I can simply open up the simulator and look at the different devices. Here it is on a BlackBerry Z10. What if I want to see if the application still looks okay when the user turns it to landscape mode? Well, there it is. And if I want to see, importantly, how it also behaves on larger screens, I can check the iPad example or the Nexus 7 example like that. And here you can see that ICEmobile is actually adapting to the screen. It's not simply expanding or contracting for smaller or larger views. It's actually adapting. So here on the tablet, we've got a UI that's more suitable for tablet users with a menu down the left side and more room to play around. So this is the ICEmobile Simulator. You can use it not just with the ICEmobile Showcase, but even with your own ICEmobile applications in your own development, which I think really helps with development. And I'll leave with that. Back to you, Brian.
Great, thank you, Philip. Can you just hand that over to me, the GoToMeeting, and just reassign that to myself?
Sure. One moment.
All right, can you see my screen yet?
Still coming.
Okay. Okay, 1 second here. All right, I think I got it now. Right? How about now?
Still not yet, Brian. Oh, there we go.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, so that kind of is it for ICEmobile. And I think what we'll do then is move on to our latest product, BridgeIt. And as I indicated before, BridgeIt is really the way that we deliver native capabilities to web-based applications. And it works with any web-based framework, and Java EE or even HTML5 and JavaScript-based approaches all work, and it integrates across ICEfaces, ICEmobile, and ICE Notify. It provides users with controllability over access to these native features as well. So there is a security layer and a security element there that allows them to authenticate the application and restrict access to the different device components if that's the way you want it to behave. It's very scalable, and then again, it supports all the major platforms that are out there, and you can run them all and access them all from a single HTML5 application. And importantly, BridgeIt is really easy to use. So 5 minutes or less. There's no native development or packaging you have to worry about. No App Store publication required by yourselves. It was launched in December of last year, so it's only been out a couple of months. Free to use under open source with an Apache 2 license. We have the utility client that is accessible via the app stores for free. And if you wanted to customize it or brand BridgeIt to your own interests as well, you can do that as well. So what can you do with BridgeIt in your web app? Well, you can access the camera, video recordings, access the microphones for doing audio recordings, QR code scanning, geo-tracking. We have some really cool stuff with augmented reality that you can do, and you can also access the contact list and device notification as well. So one of the questions we get asked a lot from developers when we're engaging with them is, how is BridgeIt different from PhoneGap? And if you guys are digging into the space, PhoneGap's going to be a very familiar name to all of you. They certainly have done some excellent work and are clearly an established leader in the space as well. But we do things a little bit differently than PhoneGap. So, in general, PhoneGap relies on a container model. So basically, you use their IDE and their tool set. You develop your HTML5 and JavaScript application. And then you compile it down and take it down into a container where then it gets bundled with the WebView browser that's in the device. And so as most of you probably are aware, in mobile devices, there's really two kinds of rendering engines, and one is the standard browsers, so things like Chrome and Safari and what have you. And then all of these mobile appliances also have a WebView browser, and this is kind of built into them at manufacturer. And the challenge with the WebView browsers, typically it's a little bit lower performance than the standard browsers, and more importantly, it's inconsistent across all the different platforms that execute it and use it. So as a result, it may, different devices may not have all the same level of features and capabilities across their WebView browsers. So, an Android phone from LG may have a different supported feature set and look different than what you might see on an iPhone, which means that you have to worry a little bit more about your QA process, and you kind of have to design your application to that lowest common denominator there. And then, of course, once you have it with PhoneGap, you have to do that platform-specific packaging and then the App Store distribution. So, BridgeIt is a little bit different. BridgeIt is much more of a web application-centric model. And so you develop it, you develop your web app like you normally would, and instead of interacting now on the client side with the WebView browser, you're interacting with the standard browser. And we do that by way of two pieces. One is a piece of JavaScript that sits in your web application that you deploy in there, and the BridgeIt utility application that's accessible from the different app stores. Right? And so as a result of all of this, you don't have to worry about any kind of application deployment. You do your web app, and we now interact with it at the standard browser level. So as a result, you get a much more consistent rendering across all the different platforms, and performance is a little bit higher there. And you don't have to worry about the packaging and that App Store submission kind of process. And that brings us to polling question number 2. Rob, over to you.
Thank you, Brian. For the second polling question, we would like to ask, what is your primary objective in developing your next mobile application? What is your primary objective in developing your next mobile application? Votes are coming through now. We'll leave it open just a few more seconds here again. Then we'll share the results with you quickly. Here are the results. Now back to you, Brian.
Perfect. Thank you, Rob. All right. I mentioned BridgeIt is very easy to use. We have an online tutorial at BridgeIt.mobi that you can find. It's as simple as downloading the app from the App Store onto the mobile device target. This happens automatically, by the way. If you were a mobile user and you access to BridgeIt-enabled website, we have the technology in there such that the user, if it's not BridgeIt-enabled, would get redirected to that utility app on the App Store. And they'd work through that installation process of installing the utility app and then get redirected back to where they left off in the application. And this is a one-time only kind of event. So once this happens, basically they never get bothered or they never run across BridgeIt again, if you will, through the process. And that's basically it. And then once you have that JavaScript in your web app, you're accessing it through a pretty simple and easy to use API. We have a number of demos for BridgeIt, and I think I'm going to hand it back over to Philip, and he's going to show you a couple of cool ones here. So let me.
Great, thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay, if you head on over to the BridgeIt.mobi site, as Brian mentioned, there's a ton of good things here, tutorials and interesting demos. One of the interesting demos I'd like to show you is, say for instance, how does the contact list work? Well, we've got some videos up here to show you. Here is the user using our contact list demo. the user clicks the demo. Now, all we've done, as Brian mentioned, BridgeIt is a simple JavaScript API, which you can tie to your web application any way you like. You might, for instance, tie it to a button like we've done here. As soon as the user clicks the button, and the button can call the BridgeIt API in JavaScript, that will automatically launch the BridgeIt native utility app. And in this case, with the contact list, the user is then launched into the native contact list application, where they can then select a contact and be immediately transported back into your web application, where the web application can then work with the actual information. And so you can see that the transition there between your web application and BridgeIt and back again is seamless. The user really doesn't notice that they're switching in and out of applications at all. And this is really at the foundation of how BridgeIt was supposed to work. It's really a utility app that's meant to sit in the background and empower your own web application without making itself too prominent. So there's another great feature of BridgeIt called augmented reality, among many other features that BridgeIt has. Now, you may not have heard of augmented reality, but it's a way to give your users an immersive experience. And by immersive, it means they're looking at a video screen on their device, but you can actually augment what they see. You can augment what they see with information that's bound to coordinates. For instance, you might put an image or a text on some coordinate that they need to hold their device and point towards, or you can actually also integrate with three-dimensional models. So there's endless possibilities for augmented reality. One of the ones we thought of is geometric data. So say, for instance, you are building an application for a farm, and you want to show the user current and expected crop yields. You could have them go to your web application and then call BridgeIt to launch them into an augmented reality view, where they could then hold their device and scan the farm and see extra information, such as the crop yields. Here it's actually a three-dimensional model that you, the developer in the web application, is actually defined, but the user can actually interact with. So this is quite revolutionary features for a web application, as you can imagine, and is something that previously we thought or expected that only could really be done in native apps. Well, now web applications can use them as well. So there's also, as Brian mentioned, a variety of other features with BridgeIt. You can take a look at BridgeIt.mobi, and then I'll hand it back to Brian.
Great. Let's see. I should be able to do this one here. And we'll jump back into the presentation. And I think we should be ready to go. So that was it for BridgeIt. Again, BridgeIt.mobi is the website, or you can get to it through ICEsoft.org as well. And that brings us to our next kind of product. And this is the one that's on the roadmap. And we have a couple of different initiatives underway. But we thought we'd talk about our notification as a service product here. And this is scheduled to come out, sometime in the next 2 or 3 months. It's something we've been working on for quite a while now, for the last, well over a year, I guess. And what Notify is it's an intelligent-based cloud notification service. And it's an extension of our push and our cloud push technologies into mobile messaging. And where it came from was, well over a year ago, we were out talking with customers about, what they would like to see next and where they would like to go. And we were on the west coast of North America talking to a set of universities and some people at BC Ferries Corporation and whatnot. And, what we got from them was very interesting. The feedback was, we'd like to evolve push into the mobile messaging space. And specifically what they were looking for was ways to reach large number of audiences. So say you were at University of Washington and you had a student body of, 30, 40,000 students. they wanted to be able to broadcast out messages that were very contextualized in nature. So for example, if there was an accident or a chemical spill at a laboratory in the science wing, they wanted to be able to communicate that information specifically to the students that were maybe at that location. Or in the event of the BC Ferries Corporation, if they had a crisis or an incident that they were trying to manage, they wanted to be able to push content out to respective recipients of the message, but have that content be customized based on the person's role and responsibility, maybe their location on the site, what have you. So heavy on the contextualization kind of emphasis there. And so what we came up with was a notification as a service. And this delivers a contextualized messaging through something that we call adaptive filtering. And it goes out over the different SMS networks as one of the fallback options, or likewise just over the same IP-based network. It supports receipt of message, so you know who's gotten the message, who's viewed it, and who hasn't. And it also supports location tracking in the event that, you say it's a crisis management situation and you really need to know where your employees are at a given time. We have an analytics and admin support function that we're delivering with the product, and it delivers the messages whether or not the users are active in the application or inactive. So again, if they're on a mobile device that's gone to sleep or moved into a battery save mode, they don't have to be active with the application in order to receive these contextualized messages. From a deployment basis, we're looking at deploying this as a web service up on the cloud. Optionally, it can be deployed locally on-premise as well. And it easily integrates with any web-based application. So this is not a Java EE specific service that we're talking about. Again, it works across platform. It piggybacks on the BridgeIt stuff that we've done. And it's very highly scalable. We're targeting 100,000 notifications to be delivered in 15 seconds over these different networks. The alpha release is due to go out sometime here, hopefully this quarter, and we're shooting for a production release sometime over the summer here in Q3. So something we're excited about. But in terms of this is a lot of words, but what can you expect from a visualization point of view? And what we're trying to do is really evolve and change that landscape of mobile messaging. And so if you were to go back to that campus security chemical spill kind of example I mentioned earlier, historically, SMS-based messaging is how this stuff was communicated, and it was typically generically broadcast, typically over telecom networks. And you might get the little message there that there's a chemical spill in the science wing alert. So as an example of what we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to leverage the most recent IP-based notification kind of technologies that are out there. And we want the application to be able to contextualize what the recipient gets in terms of these kinds of notifications and alerts. So depending on your location now, you're not being told that there's a chemical spill in the science wing. We're being told where you are relative to that incident and what maybe your best route to evacuate that we're recommending and where the rally point is. So if the central red zone was the science building and the X was where that particular recipient was, they're being instructed basically move down to the soccer fields, and that's the zone in terms of where we get it. So that's kind of what we're looking at deploying here in the next couple of months. It's one of the many services that we're looking at here for kind of BridgeIt extensions in terms of what we can do on that messaging front. And hopefully everybody will find it as exciting as we do. We do think this has the potential to really change the way web applications interact with their different mobile users. So we're getting close to the wrap-up point here. We talked about 4 different products or so, and just to summarize where they're best used, we do have our ICEfaces product. It's really based on a Java EE JSF kind of environment, and it's really best deployed for the desktop and tablet. And so if you had an existing desktop application like a lot of our users do, and you want to mobilize it and reach out maybe just to the tablet sector, ICEfaces should be all that you need in order to achieve that. If, however, you're still on Java EE or JSF, and you want to develop an application that's really suitable for smartphones, you want to take advantage of the most recent kind of interaction in terms of responsive design techniques, and you don't maybe want to have to go out and recruit and hire new staff to do that, ICEmobile is certainly the way to approach that. BridgeIt, as we talked about just a minute ago, it's giving web applications access to native device features. And it's not Java EE specific at all. It works with any kind of web application framework. And then Notify is an example of one of our upcoming BridgeIt services. It's a notification as a service, very contextual in nature, kind of always on delivery. So in summary, as we look at the portfolio, we do see a very comprehensive mobile offering, stretching from desktops through tablets and smartphones up to the cloud-based services. We've expanded our products now to move beyond just Java EE, and we have quite a wide range of technologies that we're supporting. We are targeting enterprises' mobility challenges. We started off the presentation talking about what our objectives and what our philosophies were, and hopefully that came through in this presentation. We're really focused on how to deliver new and innovative features and capabilities to web-based developers that might not typically access these kinds of capabilities. And we're focused on, delivering cost-effective solutions. So how do we allow you, our users, to reuse existing infrastructure investments, to reuse existing staff, in terms of resources and training? You shouldn't have to go out and have to rehire a new suite of developers just because you want to go mobile. How do you resolve platform proliferation and leverage existing security infrastructure that you've already made over the last 5 or 6 years? And I think that brings us to the last polling question we have. Rob?
Thanks, Brian. For the last polling question, it's a simple one. We'd like to ask, what is your timeline for developing mobile apps? What is your timeline for developing mobile apps? Keep this open just a little longer. And we'll share those results with you very quickly. And back over to Brian for conclusion.
Great, thank you, Rob. So to wrap up, where can ICEsoft help you? We're anxious and eager to hear from you. We do offer commercial support on all of our products. Likewise, we offer training, both online, on-site, and as well as customized. And, we offer service and consulting for all of our products. And, these are really the 3 areas. This is how we generate our revenue. This is how we go out and continue to support the open source offerings that we have. In terms of services and consulting, we have a lot of experience in mobile web development. We do a lot of work in best practice and performance optimization. So how do you get the most out of your existing application? For a lot of customers, they look at some of the components or the features and they want something that's close but not quite exactly the same as what we offer. So we do a lot of feature development and custom component work as well. We have a number of clients that are looking at, hey, I'm on ICEfaces 1.7 or 1.8, or I'm on JSF 1 and I want to move it. We help a lot of people taking these applications into the upgraded application development environment. So, if you're moving from 1.8 to 2.0, give us a shout. Likewise, we do a lot of BridgeIt customization as well around the client. So, we've had customers that say, I like all this stuff, but I really want a presence on the App Store for my web-based application. Can you help me customize BridgeIt utility apps so that it looks like a web application? And we do that. So to wrap up, I want to thank you very much for your time. We certainly appreciate it. We hope to hear from you. We have a number of resources there up on the screen. icesoft.org, BridgeIt.mobi would be places to go. And I think that about wraps it up. We'll jump in and take a couple of the questions now that I think we've had posted. And if you have some that come to mind, don't hesitate to open up that GoToWebinar control panel you got and type them in. So the first question we got is about the next release of ICEmobile. When is it, and what's it going to have in it? The next release of ICEmobile should be a maintenance release. It should be out in about 3 weeks. And one of the things we're focusing on and trying to get into that one right now that